After a long adventure, our heroes finally return home, and with their mission being accomplished, they lived happily ever after. But wait, something's wrong. Oh no, there's a housing crisis. There are not enough affordable homes for everyone who wants to live together. No problem, our heroes think. We'll just build a new house for all of us. But building a house today is an adventure in itself. It's kind of like slaying a dragon. Modern construction causes huge greenhouse gas emissions. Concrete, steel, plastics, they're responsible for 5 to 12% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the EU, and globally, 21% of greenhouse gas emissions are caused by the construction sector. And in the use phase, buildings consume 32% of global energy for heating and electricity. And the waste? Construction and demolition produce one of the largest waste streams in the world, with more than 30% of total waste generation globally and over 35% in the EU. So, should our heroes do all this to the planet so that they can build their new house? Not necessary. How about bio-based and circular construction? What is that, you wonder? Have a look at the butterfly model for circular economy, with biological cycles on the left and technical cycles on the right. First, bio-based construction means building with bio-based regenerative materials like straw, bamboo, wood, mycelium, or even bioplastics. Second, circular construction means using circular materials that can be easily reused, refurbished, remanufactured, and recycled. It means keeping the building materials at highest value for as long as possible. For example, by applying the circular value hill model, or using one of the 10R strategies to rethink, reduce, and reuse building materials. It also means narrowing, slowing, and closing resource flows. In practice, this often means designing a house for easy disassembly. Along Julian Kirchherr's definition of a circular economy, the construction industry needs to develop new business models that replace the end-of-life concept with reducing, reusing, recycling, and recovering materials. This needs to happen on all levels and for all processes. The aim is to create environmental quality, economic prosperity, and social equity, to the benefit of current and future generations. Sounds great, right? So, why aren't we already doing this everywhere? Well, there are some things that hinder the wide adoption of bio-based and circular building materials. There are technological and knowledge barriers, market and supply chain barriers, and institutional and regulatory barriers. Let's start with technological and knowledge barriers. Bio-based materials often show higher variability in properties and performance than most conventional construction materials. This makes replacement difficult. Even though amazing, new bio-based and circular building materials are developed, knowledge about them often doesn't reach architects, builders, and contractors. Many studies fail to combine environmental impact and economic feasibility of the new materials. This makes decision-making harder. There is a lack of field trials for bio-based and circular materials in which they could prove their performance. Such trials are necessary before applying new building materials on large scale. There is still low awareness and limited training for the application of new bio-based and circular materials in the construction industry. People simply don't know when and how to apply those new materials yet. Market and supply chain barriers. Bio-based materials often cost more upfront because production happens at smaller scale and because feedstock is more expensive in comparison to conventional and fossil-based materials. For example, using hemp fiber insulation instead of conventional glass wool insulation is about 20% more expensive. This is linked to the current carbon accounting rules, which do not yet account for the real costs of CO2 emissions. Manufacturers often struggle to increase the capacity of the production due to competition for fast-growing biomass and agricultural side streams with other industries like food and energy. Markets for bio-based materials are more local than conventional materials, which complicates reliable, large-scale supply. Transport over long distances would negate the positive effect on greenhouse gas emissions associated with bio-based materials. Supply chains in the construction sector are often very complex, involving many different actors. This hinders innovation due to conflicting modes of action and organization among the involved stakeholders. The construction industry is rather risk avoidant and prefers familiar and proven materials over new materials. With bio-based materials representing only 3% of total mass of building materials used in Europe, the choice often falls on conventional, mineral-based building materials like concrete and steel. Institutional and regulatory barriers. Building codes are written for concrete, steel, and fossil plastics. This complicates and slows down the approval of new bio-based and circular building materials. Policy alignment across sectors like agriculture, processing, and construction industry is weak and does not support the efficient use of biomass for the production of bio-based building materials. Awareness for concepts like circularity by design and design for disassembly is still low, and they appear too late in projects. Tools that support circularity, like product passports, are still underdeveloped. Incentives and public financial support are limited, which hinders the upscaling and wider adoption of bio-based and circular building materials. Wow, that's a lot to do. But there's also a lot to gain. Using bio-based and circular building materials is in line with the EU's strategy of becoming a sustainable and circular bioeconomy as soon as possible. Hopes are high as the EU bioeconomy is expected to secure long-term economic competitiveness, supply stability, and ecosystem health. Indeed, the production of bio-based and circular building materials has the potential to benefit regional processing ecosystems by diversifying the material supply chain, potentially creating and securing jobs in rural areas. Currently, the biomass producing and converting sectors create over 17 million jobs. This is equivalent to around 8% of total employment in the EU. Using bio-based materials also reduces the dependency on imports of fossil resources. It also reduces greenhouse gas emissions by reducing embodied carbon in buildings and the in-use energy demand of buildings. Furthermore, circular materials have the potential to reduce construction waste and microplastics emissions. From a private perspective, bio-based and circular building materials have three major potentials. First, there is a big potential to improve the long-term performance of buildings by reducing maintenance costs, improving energy efficiency, and offering good thermal and acoustic insulation. Second, bio-based and circular building materials can reduce the reliance on imports of virgin, non-renewable materials. This can reduce supply chain risks associated with resource scarcity and the geopolitics of fossil resources. Thirdly, they have the potential to reduce the environmental footprint and embodied carbon of buildings, thereby complying with increasingly strict environmental regulations and climate targets of companies. In fact, using bio-based building materials can reduce the overall environmental impact of a house by 18 to 33% when compared to conventional building materials. And these numbers don't even consider carbon storage yet. So, what are the next steps towards a wider adoption of bio-based and circular building materials? Even though end users of houses made from wood report many positive effects on their well-being, there are still many myths present in society that create distrust in bio-based building materials. Such concerns are often about fire safety and mold formation. This means more effort needs to go into convincing society of the advantages and beneficial properties of bio-based and circular building materials. In the context of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, replacing cheap, short-lasting, high-emitting materials with expensive, long-lasting, low-emitting materials pays off when considering the whole life cycle. However, using timber to replace concrete and steel is flawed, since it only transfers from one carbon pool, the forest, to another, the building. Instead, the use of fast-growing biomass like bamboo and straw should be intensified. Extrapolations of supply and demand show that there will be more than enough bamboo and straw available to satisfy demand until 2050, and probably even longer. In order to make the positive effects of bio-based and circular building materials more clear to the construction industry, LCA methodologies should be improved. This means, for example, including carbon storage into the overall balance when determining the environmental performance of houses. This would contribute to fast acceptance of bio-based materials in the construction industry as their advantages become more visible. After all, we can do this, so let's build this house together.